Welcome back to the Old World Game Master. We are gonna give a look at the various classes of the Player's Handbook and only of the Player's Handbook, and try to give you an idea of what to expect playing a specific class. First of all, when I have new players asking me which class I suggest, I always ask first, do you want to play a marshal or a caster? Because that gives me an idea of what they may want from their character. So I'm splitting this ranking in two areas, the marshals and the casters. Now, this ranking will be based on pure class, so not considering multiclassing. This is important because there are some specific classes that, if multiclassed, are extremely more powerful than without multiclassing. Anyway, let's start with the marshals. And of course, we start with the barbarian. Now, the barbarian has one, and probably one use only, damage and tanking. There is nothing more that he can do, and there is nothing more you should expect from it. There are some subclasses that give you some other tools, let's say, but the primary focus of a barbarian is dealing damage and tanking damage. Barbarian is a fun class if the player wants this kind of playstyle, like hack and slash, basically. But if the player is a little bit more polyhedric, let's say, barbarian, I will never suggest barbarian as class. However, if we consider what it does, barbarian for me is probably in S tier for the marshals. The fighter. The fighter has a little bit more depth for a marshal because it gives you specifically some subclasses give you the ability to go a little bit beyond of the hack and slash. Not a lot, but a little bit beyond. This means the fighter it doesn't deal a lot of damage compared to the barbarian, but it gives you some other tools that the barbarian doesn't have. So I would put fighter as an A tier, okay? The monk. The monk has, for me, is probably the most values of the marshals. It gives you the ability to do not only attacking, but also depending a lot from the subclasses, it gives you a little bit more tools, okay? You can be a good controller sometimes if you're using the Shadow Monk, or you can be a good damage dealer, especially as the elements, even a healer as the Mercy Monk. For me, Monk is S tier. It's probably the class that, as a marshal, needs less multiclassing, because anyway you end up having at least 3 attacks, but it can easily reach 6 when you use the focus points. And if you multiclass a little bit, you can tweak these attacks to be even more. So I think that the damage is comparable to the barbarian. So monk as a martial, for me, it goes straight to the S class, to the S tier, because I've never had a player that got bored playing a monk, while I had a lot of players that got bored playing a fighter or a barbarian. With the monk, it never happened. Paladin, I know Paladin is a little bit of a mix between caster and martial, but he's not a full caster, so I'm gonna consider it a martial for this ranking. Paladin, I would put it in A tier. Not because it's not powerful, but because usually every player plays the Paladin more or less in the same way. You hit, you smite, and that's it. I am perfectly aware that you can do a lot more with the Paladin. I'm saying the large majority of the people that played with me, they did that. They basically hit, smite, rinse, and repeat. Considering you do not have cantrips, you are basically forced to stay on melee a large amount of time. You have good AC, you have your auras and stuff. The Paladin is a strong class. But I've seen people not fully enjoying it for some reason. So I would put it in A tier with the fighter. Now we have the ranger and the rogue. And these two are tricky. If you want to play a rogue, like a thief or something like that, you will enjoy the rogue. Otherwise, you probably won't. The rogue for me is a B tier. The damage can be improved a little bit with some tricks, but out of that, the main point of the rogue is out of combat. You are basically a skill monkey, you can do anything. The most difficult point of a rogue is if you have a bard in the same party, because you are overlapping in many things. The rogue as a martial, you want to play it specifically as a rogue, exactly, so you will enjoy it if you like that playstyle. Otherwise, probably it's better for you to choose another martial class. And the ranger is for me, is for advanced players, because if you play the ranger as it is, you probably won't do a good damage. You probably won't be able to do what you expect the ranger to do, and you will feel like anybody else in the party is doing what you can do better. However, if you're an advanced player, the ranger can be tweaked in a way that it can do better. So, but the ranger is the class in my games that everyone wants to change after 2-3 levels. It's the class, the only one. So I feel like the ranger is C tier just for this reason. It has more capabilities of the C tier. But I don't think I've never seen anybody, even an advanced player, that can make a ranger to behave or to feel like an A tier. In my experience, if you have a different experience, good, and please let me know, because I'd like to know if someone has created a full class ranger with better capabilities. Now let's go to the casters. And the casters are a little bit trickier because depending on the subclasses, they can change a lot their scope. So, Bard. Bard is one of the classes that I like the most, but anybody that, not anybody, a lot of people that start playing a Bard, they expect to be a caster like the others when you're not. I mean, the Bard has two different playstyles. The first 9 levels, let's say, you are a support character mainly with some damage capabilities. From the 10 level on, the playstyle can switch completely. You can become a blaster, you can become a damage dealer, because you have access to any spell in the game, almost. So many people trying to play the Bard do not understand this dualism about it, so many times they expect to have a full caster like a sorcerer or something like this, and it's not the case. However, Bard is, for me, complete A tier. It could reach S tier in some situations, but for me it's A tier. Cleric is one of the two classes for me that absolutely do not need multi-classes. It gives you everything. You have good defense from heavy armor, you have good damage, you have support, you have basically everything with a cleric. For me, cleric is S tier. It's also very easy to understand and to use for new players, out of understanding, of course, the spells, but the cleric is pretty straightforward, so S tier for me. Same goes with the druid. The druid is the other class for me that does not need multi-classing. It gives you medium armor, it gives you control, it gives you damage, it gives you many options. Now, the druid, though, it depends which kind of druid you play. Because here, the choice of the subclass makes a big deal. You can play the Wild Shaper with the Moon Druid, or the caster with the other subclasses. The Moon Druid, so being a Wild Shaper, is a lot of fun, but increasing in levels, your effectiveness starts to be less and less interesting, and you will end up probably at later levels, I know because I played this, in casting a big spell, then while shaping in something and running around the battlefield, having your spell dealing the damage for you. Which is good. I mean, I'm not saying it's the wrong way to play a druid, but the wild shape starts losing importance after a specific level. Still, for me, the druid, because it can be a damage dealer, because it is absolutely a tank, especially the moon druid, because potentially continuously refreshing your temporary hit points makes you hard to kill. It is absolutely a support, so for me is S tier. It's not a class that is extremely hard to play if you play it as a caster. If you play it as a wild shaper like the moon druid, you have to understand the shapes, so the animal, the beasts you are transforming into before, so it can be trickier, okay? Now, the sorcerer. The sorcerer is a good class. It's, for me, it's A tier, absolutely. Can be S tier. But you have to stick to the spells you got every level you increase. Because it has no ability to learn the spells from the scrolls like a wizard, but it has some skills that the wizard does not have. However, I feel like the sorcerer is a little bit limited in what he can do compared to the wizard. It's always wizard and sorcerer, or you like one and not the other, or vice versa. Or you like both of them, but you consider one of those superior to the other. I consider the wizard superior for one specific reason: rituals. And if you want to add another reason, he can learn scrolls, while sorcerer cannot. However, the sorcerer has some skills that the wizard cannot have. The meta magic of the sorcerer is really powerful if used in the same, if in good hands, let's say. So I like the sorcerer. For me, it's A tier, can be S, depending on how you play it. The warlock. The warlock, I like the warlock. I played it a couple of times. I feel always a little bit, but this is me, it's not anybody, everybody can feel like this, but every time I play the warlock, I feel like it's a little bit lacking here and there, and I spend a lot of time trying to fill those gaps instead of trying to fill those gaps instead of playing the warlock, playing my character. But this is me. It's probably one of my limits. But I see a lot of people, a lot of players enjoying playing the warlock because it's easier as a caster than a wizard or a sorcerer or a bard. It's easier. But here, or you build it. This is the limit that I cannot overcome. Or you build it as a spell sword, typically, so like martial mainly, using also spells, or you play it as a blaster. Because it's very difficult to combine the two things. Or you pick the invocations for your Eldritch Blast, or you pick the invocation for your Pact Blade. Picking both, you have to leave out other invocations that are powerful. So you always have to balance where you want to be with the warlock before starting to level up. So this is why I'm saying you're always there trying to understand, do I want to go blaster, do I want to go martial, do I want to be in the middle but then losing other things? So you're always trying to tweak and to fine-tune your character instead of playing it. This is why I put the warlock in probably A tier, not more. Some builds, I've seen some builds extremely powerful. I've seen some builds that struggled, so I would say A tier. Wizard is S tier. There is no going around here, because having rituals that you can not prepare but use them reading your book means that all of those rituals can be considered, if you want, skills of the class. Like, let's say, detect magic, as an example. Detect magic, you can use it whenever you want out of combat, because as a ritual is long to cast, reading your book. So it's like having a skill. So we can consider all the rituals that you get and you put into your spellbook as skills of the class. This is why for me a wizard is probably, you cannot, they tried with the 5.5e to fill the gap between the wizard and the other classes. I feel they did a good job, but we're not there yet. The wizard is still some steps above the other classes. One of the campaigns that I had some years ago, so with the 5e, not the 5.5, I had a wizard going against a cleric, which I don't like, the PvP part of Dungeons and Dragons, and I strongly suggest not to do that. I wasn't the master in that campaign, so. And these two players, I was playing another character, I was involved, but these two players went one against each other, and if there is one class that can go against a wizard, it's the cleric. It has been really difficult for the wizard to come up on top, he did, but again, wizard I think it's the top class in Dungeons and Dragons. Now very close with cleric, bard in some situation, and depends also on the level. Bard after the 10 level, it's really close to the wizard. But the only point of the wizard, it's very difficult for a new player to make a build of a wizard that can do everything without losing anything. Well, that's it. This is my ranking of the PHP 5.5e classes, and I hope you liked it. If you don't agree with me, it's good. I mean, everybody probably has their own ranking about D&D classes, and that's okay. That's also why the game is fun. Is fun also because not everybody agrees with everybody else. Otherwise, it would be pretty boring. Please let me know something in the comment, and thank you for staying with me on the Old World Game Master. See you next time.